David Lawson lived a quiet life with his 12-year-old daughter Claire in a modest suburban home. To the outside world, they seemed like any other father and daughter, but behind closed doors, their lives were anything but ordinary. Claire was no average child. She possessed an intelligence far beyond her years. At the age of 3, she solved complex puzzles meant for adults. By 5, she could recite entire passages from scientific journals. By 7, she had an understanding of mathematics and physics that rivaled college students. Yet no one outside their home knew the full extent of her abilities. David had gone to great lengths to keep Claire hidden from the world. She was never enrolled in school, never played with children her age, and had no friends. Every aspect of her life was carefully controlled. He homeschooled her, claiming he wanted to provide a better education than any school could offer. Whenever neighbors asked why Claire wasn't in class like the other children, he simply said she had a rare learning condition and did better in a home environment. Most people didn't question it. Despite her isolation, Claire never saw herself as a prisoner. She loved learning, and her father always gave her new books, challenging problems, and advanced materials to study. But as she grew older, the walls of her home started to feel smaller. She often peered through the window, watching other children play outside, their laughter carrying through the air like a distant melody she couldn't touch. A longing stirred inside her, an urge to step beyond the confines of her home and experience the world for herself. One evening, while searching for an old book in the attic, Claire stumbled upon something unusual. Hidden behind a stack of dusty boxes was a locked metal case. It looked out of place among the old furniture and forgotten belongings. Curious, she carefully moved the boxes aside and examined the case. It was heavy with deep scratches across its surface, as if someone had tried to destroy it but failed. She traced her fingers over the lock, wondering what could be inside. Sudden creak of the floorboards made her freeze. Claire's heart pounded as she heard footsteps approaching. She quickly pushed the boxes back into place and slipped away just in time to see her father climbing the attic stairs. His eyes scanned the room, as if sensing something was out of place. Claire held her breath, her pulse racing. After a few moments, he sighed and turned back toward the stairs. That night, Claire lay awake, her mind restless. She couldn't stop, thinking about the metal case. What was inside? Why was it hidden? And more importantly, why had her father gone to such great lengths to keep it locked away? The unease in her stomach grew stronger, mixing with an unsettling realization. Her father was hiding something from her. For the first time in her life, she began to question the world she had always known. Claire couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The metal case in the attic, the way her father had reacted when he came upstairs, the tension that seemed to hang in the air, it all felt connected to something bigger, something she didn't yet understand. Her father had always been protective, but now she was beginning to wonder if it was more than just concern for her safety. It felt like fear. She started to notice things she had never paid attention to before. Her father would check the locks on the doors and windows multiple times a day, even during daylight hours. When he went outside, he would glance over his shoulder as if expecting someone to be watching. He kept his phone on him at all times, but Claire had never once seen him make a call. Then there was the black car. At first she thought it was just another neighbor's vehicle parked along the curb like any other. But then she started seeing it more often. Some days it was parked a few houses away. Other times it was positioned directly across the street. The tinted windows made it impossible to see inside, but Claire could feel it. Whoever was in that car wasn't just passing through, they were watching. One afternoon, while her father was in his office, Claire decided to test a theory. She stepped outside and walked toward the edge of the driveway, pretending to inspect the mailbox. The moment she did, the black car's engine started. A cold shiver ran down her spine. She turned her head slightly, trying not to be obvious, and saw the car slowly pull away. It didn't speed off like a normal driver in a hurry. It just eased away, disappearing around the corner. Her hands trembled as she stepped back inside. Something was very, very wrong. Claire began searching for answers. She waited for moments when her father wasn't watching, sneaking into his office when he left the room. His desk drawers were locked, but she found a few loose papers scattered on the shelves. They didn't make much sense at first. Random numbers, equations, and notes about brain function. But then she saw it. A journal. She flipped through the pages, her eyes scanning her father's handwriting. Most of it seemed like scientific observations, but one entry made her heart stop. They can't know what she is. They took the others. They won't take her. The words sent a chill through her. Who were they? Who were the others? She quickly closed the journal and put it back exactly as she had found it. Her mind raced with possibilities. Was her father hiding her from someone? And if so, why? That night. She lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling. She had always trusted her father, but now for the first time she felt something different. Doubt. Claire knew she couldn't ignore the truth any longer. Something about her life wasn't normal, and the more she thought about it, the more it terrified her. The locked case in the attic, the journal entry, the black car that kept appearing. None of it made sense. But what scared her most was the realization that her father had been lying to her. She had always believed he was protecting her, but now she wasn't so sure. She needed to get out. The idea had been forming in her mind for days. If she could just step outside, away from her father's watchful eyes, maybe she could find some answers. She had never been allowed to leave the house alone, never had a reason to question the rules before. But now those rules felt like chains. She waited for the perfect moment. That night, as the clock ticked past midnight, she listened carefully. The house was silent. She crept out of bed, her heart pounding, and made her way to the back door. The locks were stiff, but she had seen her father turn them so many times that she knew exactly how to move them without making a sound. The night air was cold against her skin as she stepped outside. It felt strange, unfamiliar, like she had entered a different world. She took a deep breath and moved toward the sidewalk, trying to stay in the shadows. Then she saw it. The black car was parked at the end of the street. It wasn't moving, but she could feel the presence of someone inside, watching. A wave of panic rushed through her. She turned to run back to the house, but before she could, the car's headlights flashed on. A figure stepped out. It was a man in a dark suit, his face barely visible in the dim light. He didn't say anything. He just stood there, as if waiting. Claire's breath caught in her throat. She didn't know whether to run or stay frozen in place. But before she could decide, she heard another sound, footsteps behind her. Her father. David's. Presence was unmistakable. His voice calm but firm. He didn't yell, didn't ask why she had left. He just stood beside her, his posture tense. For a long moment, no one moved. Then, without a word, the man in the suit nodded slightly, as if confirming something. He got back into the car, and it slowly drove away. David grabbed Claire's arm and led her inside. He locked the door behind them, checking it twice, then pulled the curtains shut. His hands were shaking. Claire had never seen him afraid before. She wanted to ask what was happening, who the man was, why he had been watching them. But she knew she wouldn't get an answer. That night, as she lay in bed, she realized something. She wasn't just trapped inside the house. She was trapped inside a secret. And she had no idea how dangerous it really was. The encounter outside changed everything. Claire could feel it in the way her father moved, in the way he barely spoke, in the way he kept glancing at the windows as if expecting someone to break through them at any moment. The locks were checked more often now, the curtains were drawn tighter, and her father barely left her side. Whatever he had feared for so long was no longer a distant possibility. It was real, and it was getting closer. For the first time in her life, Claire felt afraid of him, not because he had ever hurt her, but because she now understood that he had been hiding something far bigger than she had imagined. His fear wasn't paranoia. There was something, someone, out there watching them. And she had a feeling that it had everything to do with her. Then came the night he left. It was unexpected. He had never left her alone at night before. He gave no explanation, only a hurried instruction. Lock the doors, don't answer if anyone knocks, and don't leave the house no matter what. His voice was sharp, his eyes unreadable. Before she could ask him where he was going, he was already out the door. Claire waited, but she knew this was her only chance. She rushed to his office, her hands trembling as she turned on the old computer. It was slow, outdated, but it worked. She typed her name into a search engine, half expecting to find nothing. But she did. Her heart pounded as she scrolled through the results. Buried beneath news articles and social media links was something that made her blood run cold. A government research document. It wasn't supposed to be public, but somehow a small portion of it had been leaked years ago. It mentioned a classified experiment involving children with extraordinarily high IQs. Children who had been identified through intelligence testing but had disappeared before they could be further studied. Their families had either gone missing or refused to speak about them. One of the missing children had her last name, Claire's. Hands shook as she clicked on the file. The document was incomplete, redacted in places, but what remained was enough. The children who had disappeared weren't just smart, they were considered dangerous. Not because they had done anything wrong, but because their minds worked differently. The research suggested they could predict patterns at a level beyond human comprehension, solve problems that experts couldn't, and possibly even manipulate complex systems without formal training. If they were left to grow without control, the document warned, their intelligence could reshape society in ways that no government could predict or stop. Claire barely had time to process what she was reading when she heard a sound outside. A car pulling up, not the black car. Her father was home. But he wasn't alone, and Claire knew in that moment that nothing would ever be the same again. Claire barely had time to close the computer before she heard the front door open. She hurried back to the hallway, her heart pounding in her chest. Her father stepped inside, but she immediately noticed something was wrong. His face was pale, his movements tense. And behind him, 2 men followed. They wore dark suits, their expressions unreadable. Claire recognized one of them. It was the same man who had stepped out of the black car the other night. The other was older, his greying hair neatly combed, his eyes sharp and calculating. He looked at Claire with an expression she couldn't decipher, as if she were some kind of puzzle he had been trying to solve for years. David locked the door behind them, but Claire could see the defeat in his posture. He wasn't fighting them. He wasn't trying to stop them. It was as if he had already lost. The older man stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "It's time, Claire." She felt a chill run through her. Her father turned to her, his eyes filled with something she had never seen before. Regret. "They know," he whispered. Claire's mind raced. The files she had read, the missing children, the warnings about what they could do. It all made sense now. She wasn't just intelligent, she was one of them. And now they had found her. She shook her head, stepping back instinctively. "No," she said, though her voice barely came out as a whisper. The older man sighed, as if he had expected this reaction. "We're not here to hurt you, Claire," he said. "We're here to take you where you belong." David clenched his fists, but didn't argue. He knew there was no way out. He had been running for too long, hiding her for too many years. And now, the people he had feared all this time had finally caught up to them. Claire's mind was spinning. If she went with them, what would happen? Would she disappear like the others? Would she ever see her father again? She couldn't let them take her. Without thinking, she turned and ran. She didn't have a plan, didn't know where she was going. She just knew she had to get away. But before she could reach the back door, one of the men grabbed her arm. Strange sensation shot through her, like a pulse of energy running through her skin. The man flinched, his grip loosening just enough for her to pull away. He stared at her in shock. The older man's eyes narrowed slightly. Fascinating. Claire didn't wait to hear more. She bolted through the kitchen, her father's voice calling after her, but she couldn't stop.